Good afternoon. Whoa, that's loud. Good afternoon, everyone. Great to see so many faces here. It might still be a little early. We might still have a few people coming on in, but it's technically 12:15, which was the start time that we set for this, so I guess I'll go ahead and start, right? My name is Irene Whitcomb. I'm an instructional assistant in the English department here on campus. Oh, thank you, Erin. Thank you. Thank you. That's my job. That's what I get paid to do. I also have a background in poetry, which is why I was so graciously offered to facilitate this event by Christina Casper-Denman. This truly is a gift, so thank you so very much for allowing this to happen. So I hope you're all in the mood for some wonderful poetry. You might already know that it's National Poetry Month because it said it on the flyer. If this is your first time attending a Word Soup, Word Soup is supposed to happen every year. I think a couple of years we just, after the pandemic, we kind of had just some stuff going on, but we're hoping to bring it back. And this is an event where we get to showcase the talent of some of the folks on our campus. Today we will be featuring the talent of two of our professors in the English department, Chris or Christine, whichever you like, Neuman and Erin Bradford. Woo! Yeah, give them that beat, absolutely. So before we get to all of that lovely stuff, I thought I'd warm us up a little bit with a poem. Lots going on in the world right now, so many things. Maybe we could just get some imagery going on, get some verse happening so you can get into the proper mode so you can enjoy their stuff even more. So I'm going to read this poem. It's by a poet named Zia Torabi. He is actually a very renowned Iranian poet, and he actually is relocated here to Sacramento. And he's a fantastic writer. One of my good friends from school, Parisa Samadi, had the fortune to be able to translate his poetry. And so I am going to go ahead and read one of his poems for you right now. This poem is called Different. Okay. The redness of these sparrows doesn't surprise me at all. It's amazing that sparrows don't know this. They come by my window in the morning. They peck at the window glass so that I can open it and save them from the polluted air. I'm so angry, and I won't let them go. They stay here until they die, and the pain starts right there. When you put out your hand, get your hands off my head so that my headache stops. I told you that sparrows don't get headaches. They don't get fevers or shiver. They rest their heads on the stone and die. It's amazing that people don't know this. They pass by my window at night. They honk and start a firecracker so that I close my window and save myself from the polluted sounds. I won't let them go so that they go and get lost, and the pain starts right there. When you take your hand, don't let go of my head so that my pain stops. I told you that people get headaches. They get fevers and shivers. They put their heads on a comfortable cushion and die. However, the red of these sparrows doesn't surprise me at all. If you know of a mental hospital, let me know. I know of a crazy city, untouched. They are neither human nor sparrow. They just want to be different. That's it. That's the poem. Thank you, Zia Torabi, for writing that. So beautiful. Okay, well, I guess we can go ahead and get to our main readers today. First up to bat is Professor Christine Neuman. She's been teaching here for 3 years. And she's written a lot of poetry. She actually just published a book of poetry called The Goat, and I believe some of your selections are going to be from that book today. Yeah, well, come on up then. Please welcome Christine Neuman.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I see some friends. Oh, let me get closer. Do I see any students? I don't know. Are there any students out there? Okay. It's just inspiring being up here today because when I was a student here, oh no, I'm going to start getting nervous. It's coming in the stomach, right? When I was a student here in 2013 to 2018, I sat there and I saw our awesome professors here like Kathy Ariano, Tracy Gordine, Aaron Bradford even, so crazy that we're colleagues now. And I enjoyed the college hours and hearing poetry from some of our faculty. It really inspired me. I started to really like contemporary works because as a student I had more background in some of those older works, right? So seeing the contemporary works was really awesome. So being up here now as a professor, right? It's like, wow. If I would have told that student in 2013, oh, you're going to be reading your work up there in like 10 years, you know, she would have been like, wow, you're so cool. So just wanted to throw that out there because it's a bit nostalgia being up here. But yeah, I'm going to read some poems from the chat book I just released, and I have some copies if you want some, if you feel inspired to read more. Let's see here. Where should I begin? Okay. Okay, I like to write in kind of a narrative style, kind of confessionalism and surrealism, if you're familiar with that. Surrealism is kind of just let the muse take you. You don't worry too much about logic or reality. You just kind of let it take you wherever it wants to take you. And sometimes there's images in there, juxtapositions that kind of cancel each other out. And I really kind of dove into surrealism because I thought it was an awesome way to kind of be able to express what I'm trying to convey about my human experience and kind of what we deal with, you know, on a day-to-day basis. So this first one kind of shows you a little bit about the content too, because some of poetry is a little bit out there also. So this one is called Frank's Erectile Dysfunction. I don't know if it's the one to start with that title, but this one I wrote around Thanksgiving time a couple years ago, kind of dreading that I have to go see my family. Sometimes that's a happy moment for people to go see your family, not so much for me. You know, we have kind of a strange relationship. So I wrote this leading up to Thanksgiving. Okay. I remember thinking I finally got this right as I read my newest poem in front of a multitude of strangers. As my family stared up at me, I read about chewing rubber asphalt and shitting in the middle of a party. I thought to myself how I wish I was with you in New York City and not here waiting on Salvadorian chicken and horchata that looks too dark to be horchata at all. I'm reminded that someone else is slipping off your dress tonight, and I think to myself how I'd rather be Van Gogh's ear or dirty bong water or even my best friend Keisha's boyfriend's Frank's erectile dysfunction than be here in front of these people, speaking to them in a language I know they don't understand. And later tonight, I'll be alone again in my room, lodged in the fetal position, with my ear pressed to the floor, trying to hear what the homeless man down the street talks to his assorted belongings he's collected. Because the world is failing. I am not God. Everyone's God. Don't be silly. That's it for the first one. So I'm going to read some new poems too, that aren't in this book. So this one is a new poem I recently wrote. It's called For My Grandpa. You ever feel like people are speaking, the words are right next to each other in a sentence, but they have no meaning. Life keeps moving, like you're sleeping, except you're awake, alive, but still asleep, in one fast-forward motion. Chris Erickson from Henrytown starts to sing, and it makes me want to text my ex-boyfriend, or kiss the guy who sits next to me at the Sacramento Poetry Alliance readings. I texted my tattoo artist instead. I must admit, I felt a little uneasy, a little sweaty, horny, as she bent down to tie the laces of my Vans. The crickets and squirrels start talking to me in rhyme. I wrote a new poem about my grandpa, not mentioning my grandpa at all. Okay. This next one is called Decomposable. This one I was kind of contemplating adulthood, getting to know who I am, moving into my 30s and what that means, and kind of seeing my friends all grow up and their parents getting older, and kind of reaching that age of, figuring out who I am now, right? So I wrote this poem thinking about that. I went to my best friend's mother's funeral. I guess I've reached that age. DJ threw his Cash App card on top of the coffin as it descended into the ground. I hate desk jobs. I hate customer service jobs. I love jobs that don't pay well. Peach fuzz, frontal sex, I thank God for them both. I've been sitting on the left side of my bed for so long that I decided to move to the far right corner today. The song of my childhood. I don't know the language they speak there, but I'm going to the comedy club in East Sac anyway. I cleaned my car, I cleaned my room, I can still smell remnants of you, masking the bleach and dust. I am drinking tea and my skin is burning, with the sensation that I might not leave this place forever. Yeah, some of these are a little short, right? Okay, this one I wrote about kind of a conversation me and my brother had as we were kind of walking home from school when we were younger. This is called Cannibals. My brother rolled paper joints. Sometimes he uses pages from novels. Random, scribbled up papers he could find, newspapers, even the Bible. He walked the streets, following his friends to juvie for 3 months. He once said to me as we walked home from school, "What if the people who lived on the street were cannibals?" We laughed and then looked over at an old man wearing a white t-shirt and a cold stare. After holding eye contact with one another for several seconds, my brother looked back at me and said, "See, I told you." That was a very short one. This one is called The Goat. It's kind of why I named the chapbook The Goat. A lot of people make jokes, especially David, who just had to leave for a little bit, I guess. That, oh, I think I'm the greatest of all time. No, definitely doesn't mean that. Don't get that idea by the title. And it was actually inspired by one of these first surrealism poems that I wrote, and it is called The Goat because it's about a goat, an actual goat. So, so that's what it actually means. Okay. I thought I knew loneliness, but when you're at the local farmer's market at Carmichael Park Sunday morning, you buy a goat's foreskin, sew it on your back, and walk through the town proud. The goat says hello in the eyes of everyone who stares, because they cannot see the goat they hold within. They have no idea, I am the goat, I am the wind. My limbs begin to wither. I do not love marriage, her dull smell, her thin string-like hair, wrapped in a ball within my stomach. The babbling of your partner of 10 years. The unbearable silence returning, sounding sweeter than any bar talk. I do not love marital sex. I do not love polyandry, because I keep the worst company in the company of myself. Okay, hopefully you haven't been too scared about some of that content, little crazy lines here and there. So I'm not going to read too much from that book because it gets worse than that. So I'm going to read some more of my new ones that I thought were maybe a little bit more appropriate. But if you are interested, I'll still read a couple from the book too. But let's see here. These are some new ones I wrote because I love that I've been writing a lot recently too. Because when I first started teaching, 3 years ago, so lucky that I have this opportunity for this job too. I've been definitely loving it and growing each year. But I was so overwhelmed with work that I did stop writing. I did stop writing for a couple of years. So I'm so glad that it's kind of, the music has come back to me and I've been writing a lot of more new poems again. So it's beautiful to me that I've been writing so much and haven't stopped. I just want to write so much. So I encourage you guys, maybe after this reading too, you'll get a little inspired to write a poem. It could be a sense of healing too. So let's see, this one is kind of a love poem. I don't write a lot of love poems. They're mostly kind of reflecting of a lost love, not like a current love. So this one is a love poem. This one is pretty short too. This is called The Only Way We Meet. The only way we meet now is by reading my old poems about you, wondering where it all went wrong. How did I get here, listening to Leonard Cohen with no open road, no thick white substance in my belly button, dried up and washed away. At the very lowest moment of my story, reading each other our newest poems, cigarette after cigarette, coffee after coffee, subtle soft music, and a deep, sexy, masculine voice in the background. But you've been alone for far too long, and I never have. Yeah, that one's not a pretty short one. Okay, this next one, kind of an opposite emotion, more so kind of grief. This one is called Puppy Love. I met Dylan at the dog park last Sunday, wearing old suspenders and a white beard, walking with grief. As our dogs played, he started fingerpicking Joan Baez on the guitar, Diamonds and Rust. I told him it was beautiful. Then we began to sing the lyrics together. Call it Puppy Love. After finishing the song, he said he's been playing it every day since last Tuesday, because his brother died last Tuesday. And his fondest memory was of his brother playing this song on the record on repeat. I didn't feel so bad about the way we meet. Two strangers at a dog park, sharing stories, music, and grief. Call it puppy love. Or life's way of reminding us that it's too short. The wind will remember your name, cup your hands around it, call it out forever. Okay, this one is called Good Frog. Let's see here. This one's a bit lighter. I don't know about my audience, but I was a little high when I was writing this. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. So it's if you get that moment and you start thinking crazy thoughts, and I start thinking, I wonder if anyone possesses my body sometimes, and I just have no memory of it. So this is a funny little poem I wrote about that I did. I don't know if it's the blinds that shield the sun from entering, or the weed cigarette I just smoked, bringing in this unbearable, awkward silence inside the room. But I know there's a ghost in here, who sweeps the floor at night. I tell it good frog every morning, appreciating its hard work. It must be hard doing housework once you're dead. I hope this isn't another nightmare. It's almost impossible to tell the difference anymore. Her angel hair, carrying bad news, I know she's trying to invade my body again. I made a doctor's appointment to make sure she isn't inside me already. Playing tennis every Tuesday and Thursday, watching unscripted shows on Bravo, eating avocados on steak, having orgasms every 2 weeks. Her presence mysteriously lingers in and out of me, but it kills the loneliness. I have no body, my spiritual body has no body. My shadow sustains itself in the wind. Okay, here's another recent one that I wrote. This is called Temple. Not like a religious temple, but kind of like that coffee roaster spot. I met with a friend to give him a copy of my chapbook because we were in grad school together and we were the kind of only poets there. There weren't a lot of poets there at Sac State when I was going. So we had kind of like a little book club together, and we got a couple more people to join us, and then we also got them to start writing poetry, and we'd share poetry. It was magical. I often miss grad school too for those moments. So it was an awesome journey, but we met up again. So I got to give him my chapbook, and then, you know, when you haven't seen someone in a few years, you know, you tell them about your life, how's it going, what's new, but meeting up recently, you're more kind of concerned with what's going on in the world. So then you're like, did you see that was posted or on the news, or did you read about this? You know, it's kind of harder conversations. So yeah, we kind of got to meet up and talk about that and catch up, and then it inspired me to write a little poem about it. So this one is called Temple. We met at Temple Coffee Roasters on S Street. His skin blistering slowly in the sun, like a vampire, not allowed in the light of public. With each sunspot, I counted on his neck. In small circles, my eyes followed each direction. That looked like a ringworm scar, or rashed up cheetah prints, red and scaly. We talked about soul-sucking jobs that don't pay well, the lost muse of full-time employment, people beating up ICE agents who kill brown people without consequences. What the fuck the future might hold. An AI takeover, more heavy metal concerts, random romantic encounters, maybe a podcast renewal, and more political horror, maybe some good poetry. But is it worth it? He wore a brown coat with brown shades and a whiny voice, and he said, well, I'm headed home now, to be gross. I told him, I don't know where I'm headed. Okay, so yeah, these next few poems are going to get a little bit more on the political side. You know, I thought that would kind of do a good transition to it. So this one is called Everybody Knows. Everybody knows the woman's name who was killed by the angry ICE agent at fault. Republicans don't believe it. Border Patrol agents shoot an innocent couple in Oregon. Republicans don't believe it. The U.S. captures the president of Venezuela and his wife, Trump's Greenland strategy and the promise of new weight loss pills and the end of inflation. The Republicans believe it. My fellow teaching colleagues from grad school send me their regards as they head to Vietnam. $550 for rent and no dictatorship. A week later, they text me a beautiful water view scene from their new apartment balconies as they share a walk along the water in the evenings. And I get another news alert. ICE raids Roosevelt High School, tackling children to the ground. This generation will not forget the human hunters. R.I.P. Renee Nicole Good, everybody knows this isn't enough for people to care. R.I.P. Alex Preddy, everyone knows this isn't enough for people to care. Everybody knows this isn't enough for people to do something about it. My poems are a little short, so I don't know if I'm going too fast. But I have a couple more?
Oh, it's supposed to be short.
It's supposed to be short. Okay. Well, I have a couple more, still political, for you. Okay. This one is called The Folds of My Labia. They're coming for our throats. They're coming after the minorities. The whites think they are safe. They're firing the anti-fascists from education. They're saying they're anti-racist and queer supporting, but their fruit has gone rotten. There's maggots falling out of their educational materials. From all the white dead people they call the literary canon. Authoritarianism runs through the country, feeding his family off white supremacist sugar daddies. And the prisons are full, and I think my poetry might save the world. A professor serving students their own voices on a plastic platter, while many voices get drowned in criminal charges. And I'm working 8 days a week, but everyone's more worried about eggs being $9. And I think my poetry might save the world. Searching for a black coat in a sea of gray brain fog, sipping dirty spring water from empty buckets, kissing tattooed women with split tongue. Ever got spit on before? As I look up for my favorite cloud, I realize my translucent skin is glowing, and my nipples falling off again. And I think my poetry might save the world. But what am I gonna do about it? I ate a banana, pretended my tits were the same size, My legs could sing, the folds of my labia could hide me from the red hat devils of 2025. Okay, let's see here. Well, I think I'll just do one more. Okay. This one is called The Machine. There's a rooster on the tracks. Smelling fresh long grass or eating it, it doesn't matter. Kiss like we're young again. Run 4 miles with an Antifa group, laugh like a donkey, fuck like a virgin, something like a virgin, quoted by Allen Ginsberg, played in my head for 2 days straight. 2 years gay. Took off my top and went to Device Brewing to complain about the apoliticals, until the thoughts within my mind turned to bones in the ground. Sadness for a country that can't see people for who they are, similar and opposing. Could I forget the void? Fill it with alcohol? Take a shot that tastes like churros? Driving a Honda Accord with a broken windshield between 4 different educational institutions. But California is burning. Dictatorship returning. 1933 and 2025. An old man screams, "Hey, is there any Black Sabbath albums in there, man?" And Jesse Wells is singing folk songs about Ozempic, cancer, and war. Are we going back to the 1960s? A time where revolution is whispering, and the static, and the crackling. Guthrie's "This Machine Kills Fascists" starts ringing in my ears. But there's Tesla-branded robotic Nazis, and I can't seem to get over it. Rape my country again, in a violent rage, rape my country. Okay, I think that's all I got for today. Okay, move it towards Aaron. Maybe he'll take us to a more positive route. I hope that wasn't too much for you guys.
That was great. There we go. Yeah. Thank you, Chris. A very contemporaneous voice for our time. You were talking about being possessed by a ghost. I feel like you were probably possessed at one time by James Tate, and then maybe another time, I got a little Mark Strand in there. Maybe another time, a little bit of Charles Sinek. I see it all in there. You're sort of the reincarnation, I feel like, a very contemporaneous reincarnation of these poets. So thank you so much, Chris. That was fantastic. Could we please give everyone a round of applause for bearing your soul and being so honest and wonderful? Thank you so much, Chris. Okay, so we'll go ahead and move right along. Our second reader for today is another professor in the English department who's been here for 18 years. His name is Aaron Bradford, so please, Aaron, come on up and share your poetry with us. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. Hold on one second. Just opening this delightfully.
Very smart.
Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Irene, for hosting this. Christine, thank you for sharing your poems with us. That was wonderful. I really appreciate the time we all took. There's so much pulling at our attention, and to come here for an hour or so to share some poetry, that means so much. So I'm going to read a few poems today. This first one's going to come from, was recently published in Chiron Review, one of my favorite poetry journals. This came out this past winter. Rather than dive into the process, Irene, you asked us, I'll save some process comments for later. This poem is called Scattering. I'll tell you a little bit about the title first. The scattering is a concept in physics that basically accounts for the reason why the sky is blue, where kind of like particles and aerosols and all that get scattered, diffuse, and then we perceive them as different colors. It's also the reason why pollutants in the air make sunsets look so beautiful. So this poem is in essence about that. Scattering. The air in the valley fills with smoke again. It will stay this way the rest of the summer. Face masks serve two purposes now. Eyes stinging as parents mix outside an elementary school, waiting for our children to filter through gates. You bought our first masks when smoke from paradise spread to Sacramento. A child's birthday party ended, and as we left the Bounce Palace, a windowless structure, yellow fog touched the roofs of surrounding warehouses. We drove through the stale mustard smoke and stopped at Walgreens for surgical masks. The cashier thought about getting some for his pregnant fiancée. Are there more? We had never paid attention to particulate matter before, never checked an air quality report. Caldor has dimmed visibility to a mile. Trees burst and blur into relief in the pale smoke. When paradise burned, schools closed, and N95s were discussed ad nauseum. Mask efficacy, filtration percents, proper fit, all or nothing protection. It all repeated with COVID, all or nothing. Fires and variants repeat, and we loop, all or nothing. Are there more? Everything seems like preparation now for future disasters. Each moment a catastrophe to be erased by the next moment's cataclysm. Even with a new cabin filter, my tongue feels swollen, acrid at the tip and edges, the taste of smoke. We drive past native black oaks in the fields of dried grass that surround our house. It feels like a matter of time. The sky, filled with particulate, will be beautiful tonight, a near solace. Copper, ruby, garnet, the sun itself, a lonely fire burning on the horizon. I was planning to read this poem last, or second to last, but then it's called Sparrows, and the beautiful poem that you shared, Irene, I was like, what a wonderful poem about sparrows. That must be a sign to read Sparrows earlier, so. This poem's called Sparrows. It was written I write a lot in the summer as a teacher. For some reason I have a lot more time off in the summer to write. So you'll notice that a lot of my poems are summertime poems. And then I spend the rest of the year kind of revising them once I have like a good amount to go from. So this poem is called Sparrows. It's set in one of our many drought periods and prolonged heat periods. The drain-off pond is dry, and ashen stones from a controlled burn cover the hill piled next to it. Drawers from a plastic organizer jut in the mucked bed, and an egret lilts from a treetop as red-winged blackbirds skim food. A secondary reservoir shares dust behind a copse. I track a kaleidoscope of butterflies. They shift from brambles to right currents, a shadow of the migration the afternoon I spent arranging my dad's cremation. Monarchs coloring the sky in Los Angeles. No, these are sparrows, a simple flock, flying in shifts to a backyard oak. I start home, counting my steps and all that I've missed. As I'm looking at my poems, I'm like, I need to clean my filter cartridge or I need to get a new prescription. I'm not sure which one it is. This next poem's called Thunderbird. Lightning broke over the rim, our windows sparking with each strike. We watched from the bed, curtains wide, the light show on our first night at Grand Canyon. The storm sent uncountable branches, white tinged blue, and we stopped under trees during flash floods the next day. But that night, the first night, we stayed by the window, ions charged and colliding. This next poem is a sonnet. I don't write a lot of sonnets. The only reason I wrote this sonnet was I was taking part in one of those write a poem a month, write a poem a day. Write a poem a month is a very easy challenge. Write a poem a day for a month, challenges a few years ago. For some reason I chose July. I should have chosen February, but I chose July, which has 31 days. So one of those days I was like, I'm just going to write a sonnet. I haven't written a sonnet in years. And I decided to add to the challenge, I was going to have each rhymed couplet include a semi-precious gemstone. So every time you hear a gemstone referenced, there's another word that's supposed to rhyme with it. My favorite way to rhyme is visual rhyme, which you won't see, but you can imagine. So this poem's called Threading. I wrote it the fall that our kids went back to school after COVID. So that's the writing context there. Threading. Our daughter prepares for school, shining her garnet bracelet. It's in person again. An anxious fire runs through us all. 5th grade was internet glitches and self-paced learning. The sapphire ring, thought to bring peace, is polished too. By tomorrow, we'll be fine, we hope. She's lined stones, she's threading for protection. Ruby, for health and strength, start the wire. Tourmaline, black, purity is added. Peridot, cheer, slips. The green doesn't show. She kneels and sends fingers through carpet. Translucent dots return. For courage, she's chosen carnelian. The clasp is tight. She plans on tiger's eye studs, yours, for focus, luck. All ready? Yes. I also always wanted to rhyme the word yes with eyes. Visual rhyme, think about it for a second. And so I was very, very happy to do both in that poem, to be able to rhyme a series of semi-precious gemstones and eyes and yes. The next poem I'm going to read was published a few years ago. It was the 25th anniversary of Sacramento Poetry Center's Thule Review, which is a wonderful resource in the Sacramento area. And so I'm going to read 2 poems. They're kind of bookends. I've never read them together before. I usually avoid reading them together because I write a lot of poems about trees. So I try to kind of like put a cap on it, how many I'll read in one time together. There's an earlier poem about trees, so this will be my second and my third poem about trees, and I believe that reaches the quota that I gave myself. So. This poem is called Piney. The Aleppo pines in the backyard will die in 15 years, the smud arborist said. Canker or blight, I don't remember the diagnosis she gained before leaving, but the details stuck. Sap will exude, flesh will wax, and needles will cover the yard. I flake bark, trying to train my eyes to what she saw, while my daughter turns basil, hawthorn berries, and dandelions into a muddy soup. She's making medicine for her trees. I twittered between the 2 pines to trim them, but found mounds of rusted sap that speckled trunks. I scalpel one, and a white caterpillar blooms in a soft crater in the wax, a rim of blood around its mouth. My fingers burst it, and I wipe them on the grass and scrape another. A caterpillar dangles in its slivered board. My daughter runs to the tree, tingling. Can I keep it? I think it's killing the tree. Kill it. I crush the red mouth with the shears and scrape another mound and then another, white worms pulsing in each. A small voice beside me asks for a turn. Thin limbs bend with imago pines, roots spindle in clay. and small fingers turn flesh into translucence. So that was a poem about the trees we realized were diseased and needed to be removed. And this poem's about what happens after you remove a bunch of trees. If you're familiar with pine trees, as I hope you are, there's the big classic pine cone that we're all familiar with. That's the female pine cone. The spindly little pollen cones are the male pine cones. And if you have 2 pine trees in a backyard, what happens is that over the course of years, there's just going to be so much pollen and so much pine needle dropping that you're going to have pine trees blooming, like basically growing from the ground all the time. So even though we removed the pine trees from our backyard, that didn't stop them. So this is a poem about that. One of my favorite activities, I started this poem when I teach poetry classes, I write with my students, because if they're going to do it, I should do it too. Selfishly, it's the reason I'd like to teach poetry classes. It's like, hey, why not? So one of my favorite activities, kind of like in a eco-poetry tradition, is to have students start a poem with the line, "Blank doesn't need me." Something from nature, to reinforce that idea that we're humans, as we center ourselves in the world, especially regarding nature, tend to put ourselves pretty high above it. So just kind of like as a centering device, what in the world doesn't need you? It turns out a lot doesn't need you, but so that's the basis of this poem. It's called Tracing Edges. Pine seedlings in my yard don't need me. Cones spread scales and drop, pollen from soft clusters filter through soil, and cells split without husbandry. We cut down the Aleppos that anchored the yard, diseased trunks, allergies. But 5 years later, the seeds still sprout, and if we let them, they'd conifer. When sleepless, I count trees taking back the lot, 70 years from now growing through the roof, having rooted the foundation at 50. Slate cracking as saplings split grout, the work of ownership finished at last. The future, unforeseeable, might not happen like this. Likely not. My home's next owner might cement everything or till to build a pool. A fire might shell the neighborhood. Our neighbor's raspberry vine might rhizome and choke everything first. My best hope, a cliche as always, sees a child. She's looking at a mushroom, a snail, a dandelion, the engravings of bark, tracing edges, nose wrinkled, houses and futures, distant concerns, a past somewhere behind her.